Hello and welcome to another episode of Power On Podcast Portable. How's everyone doing out there? My name is Sushi B, and with me, of course, is the sultry Murugado 553, better known as Taylor, or also known as Taylor. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine. I think you might want to change the sultry to a much more splenetic. Let's go with splenetic. I'm very angry and
the portly. No, I don't know.
The
I'm just coming up with words at this point.
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's good to hear. I'm doing okay myself. You're already aware of this, but just anyone listening out here, I am just suffering from a little bit of, I wouldn't say vocal cord damage or anything, but just, I guess, degradation from talking a lot. And so I'm going to try to soldier on as best as I can here. But yeah, I think, Taylor, you might be able to help carry a bit more of this just for this episode so that we can get through it, kind of thing.
I guess I ought to, since I don't do it half the time.
Come on. Don't discredit yourself that hard. But with that said, why don't we get right into this? Let's get started. Today we're going to look at another Vita game. This is our second one after Rayman Legends. This is Freedom Wars, which is a Vita exclusive. And I don't think I can say it was a super anticipated game for the Vita, but I do believe that people who have Vitas might have wanted to check this out because the Vita unfortunately doesn't have a lot of exclusives or a lot of games that just give a vibe of must-buy feel to them. But I don't know. This seems to be one of those games that Sony at least tried to push somewhat to showcase the Vita's power and so forth. So I don't know if you have any initial thoughts here of the Freedom Wars game. I know I did end up buying it for you. I don't know if you were really aware of it.
I had never heard of it.
Okay.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
So it came out in 2014, June in Japan, and then October for like North America,
right.
And PAL region.
I think Asia was just before that or something too. Is that right?
It could have been. I don't quite recall.
No.
I just looked at the two dates that I saw were for there's 3 dates, but the 3 dates that I saw were just for those 3 areas or regions. I guess maybe we should go into what the setting is and what kind of game it is.
Sure. I mean, let's jump right into it. It's this was one thing that seemed to be my reason to at least suggest this game with you. The basic premise of this game is kind of unique and at least somewhat interesting. Being completely honest with you, it does get... Maybe this is where we should at least also add in this disclaimer that unfortunately both you and I did not spend any time with this game online. So there's probably aspects of this game that we're somewhat unaware of, which could have affected our opinions on this game. But at least from my feeling, the general story and premise of this game do not get fleshed out nearly enough. It's just sort of very quickly gets put on the back burner of just, oh yeah, this is the setup and here's some more stuff. That's kind of how I felt.
It's kind of like the play style is like a Monster Hunter clone, right? It's about the best or like the easiest way to put it. And yeah, I think this is this is an epidemic that is kind of pervasive throughout all sorts of media. Is that I should say mediums? Is that they'll if they're not like concrete certain about something, or if they want to try to quote unquote milk more money out of it, they seem to kind of have this initial game where they give you just a little bit of breadcrumbs for certain things, but they're like, oh, we'll continue it later.
Right.
And like you said, we didn't get to try the online stuff. So and I have heard people say that the online's fun.
Right.
I don't play well with others, so I don't know. Like, that's fine. But, if it is like the online component's really, really nice, but in the same hand, sometimes you get a lot of dicks for strangers when you play and stuff, and you're just like, online, and you're like, whatever.
Right.
when I looked into it and started playing it, like the setting is kind of like parts of the setting are really dumb, but parts of the setting I find really fascinating. Allegedly, it's supposed to take place. Well, not allegedly. I mean, it's supposed to take place on Earth in the year 102,014. So they basically just added a 10 onto it. It's so dumb. There's like no sense of governments in the way of like republics or democracies and tyrannies and stuff like that. People are living in what's called panopticons. And I don't know if you know the background of panopticons or...
it's something I've come across and heard of somewhat in the past, but I did kind of look at this a bit again to kind of be a bit of a refresher for me and so on. Personally, I thought it was an interesting concept to put into this game. Yeah, being so far in the future was pretty damn ridiculous. It just... It's completely unnecessary, right?
You could just done unknown future point.
Yeah, or you could even just done some random thing like, oh, there was a nuclear bomb went off and this is actually 2014 still or something. You could have done some other thing. It didn't need to add a 10, but that's beside the point. That doesn't really affect the game at all. It's just a dumb number.
It does in a way though, because when you're putting on 100,000 years from our point in time now, like the concept of development.
Okay, yeah, there's definitely that.
Here until now, it's
very minimal apparently for the next. Well, I'm sorry to tell everyone.
But for those who don't know, Panopticon is it was an idea proposed by Jeremy Bentham. Does that name ring any bells?
Not overly, but as I said, I did go back to take a look at this. So at the time, no.
Well, 18th, 19th century, British philosopher. He's kind of considered like the founder of utilitarianism, which is kind of why I knew of the person before, because I like that concept of utilitarianism. But he proposed this idea of having like a circular building with an observation tower in the center so that, you can see like all around, because there's an open space and an outer wall. The wall contains is kind of think of like a donut in a way. The wall contains cells for occupants, and it's used to observe people.
The donut prism of death.
Well, it's not even prism of death. It is.
What a terrible place. I don't want to be locked up in a donut. Like, I'd rather eat a donut. But I know what you're getting at.
Well, but it's fascinating because it's supposed to be that under perceived constant vigilance, discipline becomes passive rather than active. And so this style could be done through, like he even suggests, like schools, factories, or hospitals, or prisons to like keep people from doing things. And Michel Foucault, he was French philosopher. He kind of expanded upon it in Discipline and Punishment. That's what it was, Discipline and Punishment. And he kind of delved into the idea further and whatnot. So that, to me, is what really appealed to me in the game, is that it actually took this concept of Panopticism and went with it. Because you kind of get this in other games. Xenogears brings it up a little bit. Sort of. Kind of. Not quite. I mean, with like the constant surveillance sort of thing, like the Orwellian Big Brother sort of thing, but it's almost, because there's just so much other stuff going on in the game, it's just kind of like, whoop, okay. But this one, it is you are living in a panopticon, even though it's not quite as architecturally designed the same way.
Is there any design to this place? It's just sort of
it's just
shabby walls and there's no donut. We can say that much. There's definitely no donut. It's like a half broken U shape or something.
Something. I mean, it's but like you're in a panopticon and you are fighting other panopticons for resources, and at times people who live in a sky city called On High, which, I'll be honest, at least that's a different kind of name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Sky people.
Yeah. Well, right. Like On High, that's actually a better literary way of putting it than, we are the sky people, or something stupid like that. Whatever.
Superiors or something.
Right. But these assholes up in the sky, every now and again, do something called a retribution, where they come down and just stomp.
Squash everybody.
It's
basically it's to maintain that fear within the all the people living down below of, we are watching you. We also need to make sure that that we're still watching you, because even though you think we're watching you and you start doing bad things, we got to make sure that you feel punished for doing those bad things too.
Hmm. And so in the Panopticons, they eventually create this kind of social structure, or the societal structure, where being a burden on your society in any shape or fashion is a crime.
Right.
And so you are sentenced to become they call it criminals, and you have to fight other Panopticons, criminals, or these things called abductors,
mm-hmm.
which are never explained.
They're basically large mechanical robots that are kind of lifted from Monster Hunter. kind of. Right. Again,
because there's
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, there's like a spider type, a lion type.
Right. Is it more lion or
quadrupedal
type? I don't know. Anyways, it doesn't really matter, but a big cat type.
That's probably more tiger than lion.
Yeah, whatever. But, again, this is where I was drawn in. I had purchased this game on PSN. They had a big sale at one point. I got it for a nice, awesome, super cheap price. I'd heard of the game before, and I'd seen a little bit about it. Didn't know much about the story. I just had kind of seen it. I thought, okay, this seems like a pretty decent looking game. So that's why I grabbed it for you, because I'd played only the first hour, 3 hours. And that concept is starting to sort of get developed very early on.
Mm.
There's a very early on in the game, there's a point where you take 5 steps or something in the cell, and it's like, punishment. Like, whoa, what the hell? Like, you don't expect it. Like, it's really catches you off guard, and it makes you laugh a bit, and you're like, oh, geez, I gotta really watch what I'm doing here for the first bit. So I was drawn into that, and I thought, it seemed like it would be a very unique and different experience. Yeah, there was some of those elements, excuse me, that are drawn in from other things. Okay, this is not anything new to have, these super superior people in the sky, ruling over the people down below. We've seen this in other, movies, games, books. We've seen this. But it was just, I hadn't really seen the use of a Panopticon in such a almost damning way, as it's explained to be like, yeah, you're watched all the time. If you make one move that somehow engages you in what we believe is a criminal activity, such as just taking 5 steps in your cell, you will be punished for that. I haven't played another game where they were just like, there was no real punishment. It was just like bad, kind of thing. Like, some text just saying, don't do that or something. This has this big symbols like,
right. And
makes you feel bad.
They want to explain that, like, with punishment, you were given years of service that you have to chip away at by doing missions and stuff like that, or like donating resources and stuff. And I too, like, starting it out, I thought the whole concept of being punished for running for 5 seconds outside of the cell and then being penalized 25 years for it, or 15 years or something for it, I thought that was really cool, because it was like, oh, this is right. This is actually affecting the plot. Right. However, the veneer quickly falls away as you are able to earn like a credit to allow you to have more civil liberties.
Right.
And so within the first hour, you get punched in the face by this whole Panopticism concept, which is like, oh, okay, that's really different. That's cool. But by like, the third, fourth, maybe fifth hour, by that point, you've kind of like the story, what little there is, and also just from personal liberties and stuff, you've already kind of gotten rid of it, which was a damn shame.
Yeah.
I was just like, that sucked.
Yeah, it really was. And that's what kind of disappointed me, because after I gave you the game and we started playing it a bit more, and I was still okay with it for a while because I was picking this game up off and on. And so I wasn't playing it kind of steady, and I know you were starting to get more steady into it, and I could tell your capacity to accept is maybe not the word I want, but to even enjoy this game on any level.
That's a good way.
Yeah, I wanted to say enjoy,
I'm not very excited
to accept this game, it declined so quickly. I could tell in the messages you would send me and stuff. And I thought, oh no, this doesn't sound good. So, and it's really unfortunate because by the time you get to the end, you're just left with a bunch of plot points that are just lifted from other games in particular. Just a whole bunch of screwball things that they were like, okay. Oh, we got a guy who's going to betray you. Sorry for the spoiler. We got, you just start drawing in stuff that just came from a bunch of other games, and I was like, this is such a damn shame. Like, they just threw it all away thinking, well, we kind of gotta stick to that formula after breaking the mold, at least at the start. And it's like, oh, that's crap.
Well, right, because you're going through what are supposed to be considered highly, like, restricted areas, and you're just kind of like, I am not feeling, because part of the problem with the damn game is that it's incredibly repetitive early on, because you'll be running to one area and then going to another, and then back to that area, and then going back to the area, and back and back and back and back and back and back until you get the ability to fast travel. That was the best thing ever. Because you can at least run for like 2 or 3 seconds and just kind of stop, then run again, stop, work your way to that, because it is so annoying to go down, talk to someone, and they're like, okay, I'll meet you there. Oh. You gotta run back, right?
And you're stuck with it. But even with that fast travel function, you're still stuck with those load screens, because you gotta go into the elevator to go to, said floor, and then you have to go to the other side of that floor, and there's another load screen, and it's like, it gets really painful after a while. There was a few times I played this game where I didn't have a lot of time to devote to it at that moment. So I was hoping to get in at least a battle or two. Next thing I know, it's talk to this guy. Wait a second, he can't actually help you. You gotta go talk to that girl who's sitting in the corner on floor 3. So you go all the way over to floor 3, and she says, well, actually, there's a guy selling ice cream in the, what is the, Zaka? Zaka and, what is the... Oh, that's escaping me. It's a bar in the game. There's the two sort of bar areas. I hated going to those places because at the beginning of the game it felt relevant, and it quickly becomes extremely irrelevant. They just want you to walk in, talk to a guy who has a giant exclamation icon over his head. He tells you a bunch of stuff that I would just not even bother to read because it didn't matter. You could just skip through everything, and it would just come up on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Oh, mission blah 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 is now available, and it's like, okay, start for the mission. Right. So it was disheartening to see that happen so quickly. The first part I was okay. I get it. You had to kind of grind, sort of level grind in a way, I guess, in this game. It is sort of an action RPG, right? So you sort of have to grind to get some of those points, to get some of those civil liberties back. Okay, no problem. You get some of them back, and suddenly the world opens up, but in the worst possible way, basically. It's, I don't know how else to put it.
It is a nightmare of tropes that just kind of unfolds before you.
Right, and it all culminates into what you said, this idea of, well, we have a plan for 3 or 4 games, so we're not really gonna conclude this one. We're just gonna sort of lead you on a bit here, and we're not really gonna give you a villain that you need to really worry about, because
Well, I mean, they gave you the one throughout the game, sort of. I mean,
but I mean that's tied up. Well,
right.
I suppose. But.
Tied, right. But and the thing that always kind of bugged me about this story was that throughout the game you are intermittently interrupted, for lack of a better word, the girl that pops up and says some really dumb, contrived nonsense. It's about it's just like, really, I don't...
If you breathe the air for 3 seconds, you shall reach the 4th level. It is really... It's not quite that bad, but it's still pretty...
I can't think of her name off the top of my head.
I can't either.
But she's always talking about, you need to meet Simeon, and Simeon wants to meet you, and all this other nonsense. Well, you get to meet him, and then it's just kind of... whatever.
Should have been meeting the Sumerian, Conan, and start chopping people up.
Conan wasn't a Sumerian.
Conan was a Sumerian.
No, he wasn't.
Conan the Sumerian.
Is it?
Yeah. Are you thinking of Kull? Kull wasn't a Sumerian. Conan
I'm thinking
was
of the maybe Sumerian. Sumerian, I thought was the
I thought it was changed to with the C-I... anyways, whatever. Let's talk about that later. But anyways.
Well, no, but I'm thinking of Sumer, so that's...
Oh, well, that's...
I know, but I'm teasing. Anywho, back to Freedom Wars, which is not Conan.
Who knows, maybe Robert E. Howard wrote this story. It is in the year, what, 10,000?
102,000, thank you.
Sorry. I should have made sure to write that note down.
Right. I wrote it down with angry underlines.
Perhaps the long story short here is missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity, and of course, like you said before, because we didn't play the online component, that's seemingly where a lot of the effort went into it. However, some people just don't like to play online, so...
Which I presume there might not be much in the way of the story. There might be chunks that are added, but it seemed to be more of the action component, the gameplay. Right. So, maybe in the future we could at least try this just for fun, and maybe we can tack on something. I don't know. I still would like to give it a shot just to see what it's all about. There's I'm just reading about it the last few days, and I didn't also realize that the Japanese version was released slightly different than the North American and the Asian and European versions, where the Japanese version is only within Japan, within the prefectures, whereas these other versions are in major cities around the world, which is a neat thing to include, and sort of warring against other parts of your country and whatnot. It was kind of cool, but again, we didn't play that part of the game, so it's hard for us to really mention how much it affects. Essentially, if you, in the single player mode, I don't know what city you chose. I chose Taipei. And from my understanding, when we kind of described the environment, it basically just has a different sign. And to me, that's really stupid. I know that would have been very difficult to probably put in a bunch of different landmarks or whatnot in these places. But just having literally the same colored sign with the same font and everything is the same, it just says the different city name, seemed a bit lazy to me. It could have been because they did it last minute. They were more focused on it being in Japan, and they just thought, we better put this in because this is the international release. Who knows? Right. Still kind of seems lazy to me.
Yeah, that, just the whole game, it feels kind of lazy to me, because you have, I shouldn't say that, that's not right for me to say. I mean, in the sense of environmental design, it seems really lazy. You have, inside corridors, two kind of different versions of that. A sand.
One that's a little more developed and one that's a little more slummy.
Right. A desert area.
Oh, this is within the gameplay aspect now, the action sequences.
Yeah, that's what I meant by the corridors.
Sorry. I thought you meant more within the actual Panopticon.
Well, I mean,
which is not
you do fight there once, or not once, but a couple times. So, let's see the city. There's the city. There's I think
right,
and then there's
a few different sort of areas of the factory city
areas altogether. There's not that many. Mm-hmm. And you go through them all the fucking time. It is such a trial of patience and underwhelming, like, grandeur to be like, oh, back in the fucking desert again. I cannot count.
At least the desert offered something different than the slummy city stage, which just felt the same as the Panopticon, though. The desert was something just so out of, place in a way. It just was. It was a more natural environment than just, oh, we're in the concrete jungle again. So I see what you're getting at.
But yeah, that's part of my problem. Just environmentally, it was very uninspiring. Mm-hmm. Just like, oh, I mean, but I understand.
Vita limitations maybe too.
Do what?
There could be Vita limitations that disallowed them from adding other parts. I mean, maybe they wanted to, maybe they didn't. I don't know, but I don't want to jump off of your point too sharply. However, I think we probably, well, maybe not, but I would definitely say this game has very high production value at the least. It's a very polished looking game. The graphics are done very well for what the Vita can handle. The music is, whatever, it's a bit toss away, but with these games, it unfortunately kind of is. The voice acting, I don't know if it's good, but there is a lot of voice acting put in here, which surprised me. I didn't think there would be that much.
They didn't translate it, which was interesting. They kept it in Japanese.
No, they didn't. But that's fine to me. That could have been
I thought that was kind of
get it out.
Yeah, kind of like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's fine with me. I don't mind that sort of thing. I'm reading the text, even if it's in English voiceovers anyways. I like having the text on the screen. Sometimes you don't catch something through someone's voice acting or whatnot, so. But yeah, I just think it looks like they at least put a lot of effort to sort of showcase this game. Wow, this is what the Vita can handle kind of thing. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
I would disagree with that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just like the style of the game, because it just feels really there weren't that many environments. There weren't that many different fucking like monsters. There's only a few of them.
I agree, but I still think that they polished like the monsters and
but
the cutscenes are done.
4 fucking monsters. It's kind of easy.
Well, yeah, they better be pretty polished.
Well, right. That's what. But I mean, that's. I'm. Had there at least been a bit more variety in that regard, and there are more monsters, but it got to the point where my patience was kind of done with the game. Like, I was to a point where I was not having fun doing it at all.
Sure. That's never a good sign, right?
Well, right. And it was more of just a chore, and just the missions felt like a blur. You're just doing the same thing 80% of the time.
Right.
Like, rescue somebody or just get rid of the abductor.
Destroy everything.
Right. And something we didn't mention is that you have like 3 different styles of these. They're not chains. Are they chains? Thorns, thank you. Yeah, it's like a chain. Thorns. There's 3 different kinds of them. There's one that's a healing, one that's like a shielding, another one for attacking.
Trap, I think it was.
Right. Well, yeah, trapping. And I only did the trapping.
I did for a long time as well. I only used the trapping one for a big chunk of the game, and then I actually switched to the healing one. I found the healing one quite useful later on in the game.
Well, it's because the AI is dumb. The AI
they don't kill you very often.
The AI is dumb, and accompanying your character, because you get the main character who's just a Mary Sue or Gary Stu, which you just kind of project yourself onto him kind of thing, which, okay, I'm not going to hate it, but I'm not going to like it. But accompanied with that is a thing called like an accessory.
Right.
And the accessory you can equip with different weapons and stuff like that. Give them commands and stuff.
Not a very good one, but sort of your bodyguard in a way, your sort of handler, sort
kind
of,
of
right?
like a meat shield in a way.
Yeah, that too. But if you're gonna meat shield, geez, the thing gets broken like every battle within the first few minutes usually. You got to go rescue the thing. But
I was just saying, the only thing it was good for me was equipping because you can have different types of weapons. You can have machine guns, rifles, missiles,
heavy swords or heavy
swords,
sort of melee.
Like a chainsaw-esque kind of
bazookas or whatever.
Bazookas. That's what I equipped on it. I equipped like bazookas and shit on it. I was like, just go to town. Just do as much damage as you can, and I will resuscitate you sometime.
Taylor's just hiding out in the corner with his character behind a rock or something.
What I ended up
sending his robot out to fight the android.
Like I was the one that was always just like mashing the button because you don't want to just try to blow it up because it'll have shields on it and stuff to protect you from projectiles a lot with the abductors. So what you end up trying to do is, like I did, I was like, you can use your thorn to grab a hold of them in different parts, and then in certain sections you can saw shit off. So you can saw off their hand, or their front of their shoulder.
I think you can only saw the top parts of it, right? You can grab the legs of the thing, but you can never break them off, which is kind of, I wish you could have. You could just sort of disable them.
I think you could. If they had like armor things on the side, I think.
Well, that was the arms, but the legs too?
I did.
I only remember pulling them down by the legs, but they get up within 15 seconds or something. Yeah, so it's not really that effective. But
yeah. Usually
I did like the sawing thing.
But
I did like that.
All you're doing is mashing, and that's just kind of.
It's true. It is true.
And it becomes a chore with the monsters, because eventually it's like when you get on, the targeting system is fucking whacked in it. It is so fucking bad. It is like if you auto target something, or because it kind of auto targets, and you're trying to cycle through, you're better off just fucking doing it yourself. That's what I ended up doing. I was like, fuck this, I'm doing this myself.
Well, the camera doesn't help that cause most of the time, because sometimes if you're next to the thing from the side and you try to do that auto target, you have no idea what you're trying to target. So often what I would do, because it was a bit clumsy, I would just launch my character at the thing, and you would sort of attach to whatever was the closest part, and I wouldn't change the target. I would just push on, I forget which control scheme I used, but I would push the jump off sort of button.
Okay.
And then I would just relaunch the thorn at that target again until it would attach to the part that I wanted. That seemed to work. It wasn't the greatest way of doing it, but it usually got the job done.
I don't know. It worked well for me to just kind of auto do it, like not auto do it, but to do it myself, because it's like this is
just manually try to
right. You kind of be back a little bit, don't try to aggro it. All right, okay. Like that
usually worked, but sometimes there was two abductors, so you'd be so worried about one, and it would be that giant spider thing, and it would start spinning at you, and you couldn't get out of the way or whatnot. And I didn't mind that you could cut off the parts. I thought that was interesting, and that was you would collect them to sell the parts for the credits that you were talking about to reduce your sentence, or
for weapons
and so forth. I didn't mind this, but it was just, and it wasn't a game of chess or anything. The game actually does a decent job of saying, here's more or less what you're going to get. These are the things you get if you finish the stage within a certain time frame. And this is the type of monster you're going to fight. You're probably going to get the pieces you need for the weapon you're upgrading from that thing. However, often I still would go into those stages, fight the thing, not get the piece I still wanted, and have to scroll through every stage one more time to see where that one piece that I need. And if I needed 6 of them, I'd have to do it 6 times because they'll only get one piece from. So that's where the frustration came back in. It was nice that it labeled it and it said, here's what you can get here. But it became frustrating when you had to go into those battles. You were ill-equipped because you needed a piece from that thing, but you couldn't damage that thing because you need to upgrade that weapon before you can fight that thing. So it became this cyclical event of, and maybe that's where the online component comes in though. Because I know in the online component you can team up with people and you can fight these things and you can get the pieces you need and so forth. So maybe that makes it easier.
Perhaps.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, I wanted to do a 10 Degrees of Taylor.
Uh-oh.
And I wanted to do it on the thorns, but if you didn't even try the other thorns, it's going to be a little difficult to do that now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good thing I brought that up, because I honestly had no desire to try the shielding one. No, the healing one, I was tempted to use because, let's face it, the AI healers are retarded. But, I was just like, fuck it, I'll just get through this.
You shall persevere. Well, why don't we throw a little monkey wrench in this then? Let's just take it at this way with which characters did you typically sort of maintain in your party, or at least rotate through your party? Now, it's going to be hard to judge this because more or less the only thing you can judge it on is two things. What thorn did they use? And cosmetically, how did they look? Because otherwise, there's nothing there that makes them any different.
I don't know, I think...
Unless you can think of adding another portion of that. That's all I've got for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to say that I can't really say for certain because I was more so just concentrating on myself and not trying to die. Because here's the thing, if you lose all your hit points, you aren't resuscitated in a 3-second span or so, you respawn and you have depending on which mission, you might have 5 or 3 or 6 or something like that.
The average seemed to be about 5 though.
Right. And I don't know, it seemed like with the 2 healers that I used, that one of them had more of a little bit understanding that they're there to heal, not to just kind of go up to an abductor and die. But let's see, because you had the people that I used the most was Matthias.
Yeah, I use that character a lot too.
He's kind of like the what would you call him? The duder? I can't think of the word for it.
Yeah, he also plays a role in the story almost as the sidekick.
Right. And he uses a healing thorn, and he's the one that kind of just let me run in front of this abductor, and I'm dead.
He wasn't too bad for me. He did that, but there was often times where I'd be in some damage and need some help, and he would just suddenly be there and would heal me up. So I thought he was not too bad.
Man, I'd probably give him a 5 for average, because he was
I'm gonna give him a 7.5. He wasn't that ridiculously bad for me.
Well, I said average, and that to me is middle of the ground.
Well, no, 5 is the average out of 10.
So, yeah. The other healer is Beatrix, and she actually was a lot better about healing other people. And so I didn't mind her. All their outfits look retarded to begin with. They're terrible. They're
futuristic.
Zipper heavy, bad kind of thing. But she's the cog that turns the whole story, sort of, pretty much.
Kind of.
I mean, what story there is. So, and I'd probably put her at a 6.5.
Yeah, I used her until she became no longer available, and she was quite useful. And it was nice to have the 2 healers when one of them was inept. I don't know, didn't do anything. You at least had that backup. And she did her function for the most part. She was not really able to fight though.
She didn't die. She was actually pretty keen on keeping people alive for me. So I was like, okay, at least you are more concerned about, the healing kind of thing.
Rather than the running. Running away.
Rather than just
running straight
standing in front of it. Right. I'm a healer, but I want to charge in Leroy Jenkins. But, let's see here. The other character I used was one of them was Yui.
Yep, I used him as well.
He
we
has
didn't give a score to sort of stop.
I said 6.5.
Sorry, you did say that. I give her a 7. Sorry,
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, but Yui, he uses the shielding thorn, which I don't think I ever saw him use this shielding thorn.
Can I say that? I was gonna just feed off of that. I don't think there's anything to be had with that shielding. Other than the fact that it's a color change. What did the guy ever do? I saw him once or twice stand there, charge it up, sort of throw it at the group surrounding him, and you would get this little shield boost once in a while, but it happened so rarely. The reason he stayed in the party was because he was an effective fighter.
Right, he just went up there, and he's like this stupid Dogi style built, like,
yeah, he's just a tank.
Mahonker, right? And he just goes up and just punches the shit out of stuff.
Giant abductor things that are larger than buildings, and he's just running in there.
Running in and just
a clenched fist.
Like, okay. So I probably he was useful, and same with his accessory. I think that's also part of the problem with both Beatrix and Matthias, is that their accessories really didn't do shit for me. Mm-hmm. But he and his abductor were pretty keen on doing damage, which
his accessory.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty awesome if he had an abductor.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
No. Just, it would be pretty awesome if you just would call in an abductor to help out. That'd be pretty cool.
His accessory was beastly. So I'd probably put them at like 7.5.
Cool. I'd probably still give him an 8, even though I didn't find his thorn usage very effective. But yeah, he's a good fighter. He's not afraid to take a hit. He gets in there. He's not too bad about resuscitation as well. He seems the AI for him seems to be a little bit better about picking up the characters that have fallen, but he's super slow. If he isn't nearby where you are, I use there's an extended time, what are those pieces called that you could, attachments or something you could clip on? Do you remember what I'm talking about? What were those called? I had the one that gave you, 15-second enhancement for resuscitation or something I had. I forget how long it is now, but that would work out with him because he could be kind of far and it would take him some time to get over, but he would help you get up. So I'd give him an 8 for sure, I think. Okay. There was one other character I personally did use because Beatrice is so in and out of the game. That was, I'm probably going to mispronounce the name, Elfriede or
Elfriede?
She had the blue hair. Yeah, Elfriede.
Right.
She wasn't bad too. She was one of the few trap thorn users that also would fight and get in there and, could take damage, could fight back, would get knocked down, but was fairly effective most of the time. So the other characters I didn't really care for. They were just sort of there and never really used them.
I would say I used her a bit because her accessory was also, I think her accessory had like a rocket or like some bazooka of some sort.
Something big and heavy.
Right. I didn't give a rat's ass about the character at all. It was just like, whatever. Go.
Yeah, that character is not, as are most of those characters, they're just, oh, we want to fight? Yeah, alright, I'll help out kind of thing. And what else could they have done, right? The story doesn't lend itself to add all these characters, and then all the characters that are in the story are just these NPCs that have things to say, but you just get so caught up with, okay, let's just get to the next point. No,
right.
It's just, I'm sure there were certain things that were unique and fun to read, but.
I would probably give that girl like a 7.
Okay, I'd probably stick to a 7 as well.
Okay. I kind of bounced a bit early on until she showed up because it ended up being like you and her doing damage and me sawing off parts of, pretty much, of like the abductors and stuff. But, Nina kind of used her a little bit, but not really. She had a trap thorn as well. And Sergio, I liked to use, but they're so like whatever. And Kai was the other one. I was just like, I never used the siblings. the Anne and Hal. There's in the story there is a point where you have to choose which one survives.
Oh, right.
And you just like you see it from a fucking mile away, and you're like, this is so painfully obvious, and there is no emotion in it whatsoever. Just like whatever. One of them died.
Right.
Okay. It's not even one that I used, but thanks. I never used them, so it wasn't like I was losing some
somebody
something.
valuable. Just like, yeah, we traded him for a bag of balls.
Right. So.
Yeah, it's a bit more just on that end of skinned characters, basically. There's one character we didn't mention that is fairly prevalent as well in the story, and that's Natalia, who...
Oh, yeah.
Her role also starts off sort of... She comes in at that time when you're starting to get a bit bored with the game early on, thinking, oh, okay, now you've got somebody who's really here to watch and check up what you're doing again. But that just goes away, like right out the window very shortly again. It just becomes, she is nothing more than the messenger. Here's another mission.
All right.
And it's thrown away pretty abruptly as well. And then later on, she sort of has to join you, and you have this horrible battle with her where she has, 3 accessories or something? Or whatever it is. And, that battle sucks. It's really challenging. It's not fun.
Well, it's not even
you
challenging.
Have to cheese to get through.
It's obnoxious. Because,
right.
they can all resuscitate themselves, but you have to, you're screwed. And
you're solo, so.
Right.
You can't even have your accessories, so it's a tough battle, and not a very fun battle. She's sniping the hell out of you while these other 3 are running up and bashing your head in, and you gotta get kind of lucky, and you kind of, as I said, you cheese the battle by making them come up to you on this is what I did anyways. I made them come up to me on the second floor of the platform, and they would come up and I'd just slash away at them and hope that she would miss with her one sniper shot while she reloaded, and you'd have to get close to her and chop her up kind of thing.
Yeah.
And doesn't she has 9
and you have
respawns, I think, right?
Something like that.
She has quite a few though, and it's not easy. So anyway.
That's obnoxious, but
and she's not very useful in battle after either. She's really effective against you in that one battle you throw her in there, and she's got a sniper rifle, and you're thinking, okay, maybe she could do a few things, and she can't do anything. It's really unfortunate.
The other character of any remote character in this game is Carlos.
A shell of a man.
But I mean, and I hate to bag on this game so much, but as you mentioned, it really, I don't want to say it infuriated me. It just disappointed
sucked the life
me.
Out of you.
Well, it just disappointed me that they would take a concept, whatever concept, it doesn't have to be Panopticism, just take a concept, start something interesting, because it was interesting. I thought the first initial bit of it was pretty interesting. Otherwise I wouldn't have, got further and further as quickly as I did into it. But then it's like, yeah, fuck it, whatever, whatever.
The cart went off the cliff pretty fast.
Except, I will say, and this might be the one quote-unquote saving grace for it, is I actually liked how the final boss is implemented.
Mm-hmm.
Because the final boss is supposed to be from, it's supposed to be from, hell, basically, is what they kind of refer to it as. And you have to fight it, and how it fights is very different than the same 4 abductors you fight throughout the whole game. So it was something different.
There's another large abductor that looks like it's a ripoff of Shadow of the Colossus from the future.
So it's something different. It's hard.
It's pretty hard. You got those bloody chains coming at you all the time. It was a pretty neat battle. It was a pretty cool sort of way to at least try to make up for some of the other stuff. And interesting, the shape is all, well, what is it? The casket, right? So it's sort of this it's hard to explain, I guess, but it is neat. It sort of opens up, and that's how you got to get in there, and you chop off the pieces slowly, and it was pretty cool. The chains are infuriating and so forth, but that is a long ending too. It's another trope though of what I guess you could say many Japanese games do of, here's a final battle. Oh wait, there's actually one more. Oh, and there's actually a third one. You gotta, they kind of, and there's no save and all that. And I'm like, I thought we were kind of done with this, but I guess this isn't really gone away. So, this is the real final boss, I promise.
Well, yeah, but at least it wasn't. No, I will tell you that. Yeah, the penultimate stuff, you're just kind of like, it wasn't that hard. They build it up to be like super badass, the red, whatever the fuck. And it's just another fucking abductor. You're like, okay. And that's what was appealing, at least about the actual final boss, was that it was different. It floated around. It had these asshole chain chomp things that were just like, they will fuck you up if you are not.
Dr. Octopus Arms or whatever.
Right. They do not play games.
No.
So, because I was reading up on people's comments about it, like, after I'd beaten it, and a lot of people were like, fuck that final boss. And it's just because, but I was like, but it was so cool because it was actually challenging. And not just a redundant. I mean, yeah, you're still sawing off shit, but you have to worry about the chains and all this kind of stuff, and the chains don't go down without a fight. I mean,
right? No, they don't, and you can't really use rocket launchers on them because they're just moving so quickly. You can eventually, you will be able to target them, but it's a tough fight. And as you're just alluding to, it's similar to those other things that have occurred earlier on in the game. However, it poses a challenge, and the uniqueness of how the challenge is presented to you gives it a little more flair than just, okay, it's the same thing. It's this tiger thing one more time that's going to jump around really annoyingly, but you start to figure out how to beat that thing.
Right.
It's so different. It's up in, as you said, it floats up in the sky and then it, smashes down in the ground, and it does some different things that we haven't seen up to this point. It's not as redundant as the other parts were. So I agree with you. I think the final, yeah, that's right. The final boss was pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then you get that crap ending.
Well, right. And then you're just like, here's
thrown out the window.
Here's Simeon. Goodbye. What?
See you next game.
Yeah. Okay.
It's hard to say if they're going to make another game at this point. But this game did sell extremely well in Japan. So I presume it's hard to say right now because Sony seems at least somewhat non-committed to the Vita, so it's hard to say for sure. But I would assume they are going to try to make another one. But I don't know if it will get released internationally.
Right.
That would be my guess.
I don't know,
Story-wise, I could care less. They'd have to start throwing in a lot of different battle concepts, and they'd have to do something pretty substandard of what they did here. Well, substandard is not the
substantial.
Word. Yeah, substantial.
Actually different.
It's too late for me. But they'd have to do something to really spice it up. And I think, unfortunately, the story has been so bent out of shape at this point that it's kind of lost that little bit of edge that it began with.
Right.
I think they can't really even go back to the Panopticon. Like, the concept would still be there, but they wouldn't really be able to implement something new unless it was sort of, I don't know, people got repunished for something. I don't know. They could do something, obviously. However, I just think it wouldn't be as unique as it once was when they began.
Right. They let a golden opportunity slip.
The cat's out of the bag.
Right. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Kind of thing.
I was thinking more Pandora's box, but okay. The toothpaste back in the tube.
But I will say this, probably the most fantastic character in the whole lot is Percy. The little bear thing that's kind of...
Oh, yeah. I forgot that thing had a name.
Percy Propa, I think is what its name is. And that thing is this cute little bear thing. It's
mascot thing.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. You're in jail and you're being punished, and they got this cutesy mascot that shows up, and it's just like, congratulations!
Even though you've been a burden on your society, you've done some good.
Gosh darn it, you're trying.
Yeah, that's like, that's totally a Japan thing, but
it's a bit out of place. I don't mind it, but it is a bit out of place.
I just liked it because it was because it was out of place and I didn't like the game. I was like, I like this thing.
Well, you found some light at the end of that tunnel. One other thing here, too, that I don't mind, but that was an interesting choice on their part, is the inability to reach freedom by the end of the main game.
Right.
There's a lot of game to be had if you ever want to get out of that 1 million year punishment hole, basically.
Because by the end of it, just by like playing it normally, you're about at the 900,000 mark.
Roughly that much, yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of game to be had. And I had seen that there have been some players that have gone all that way down. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't sound as though it's all that rewarding I didn't read exactly what happens, but it's hard to say that would be worth playing literally hundreds of hours. You're probably looking at 200 plus hours at least, I guess, to do that.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. Maybe
there's reserve that shrine for Star Ocean 2.
Which is funny to me that there isn't even a trophy for going that far.
There isn't? I thought there was.
No, no. The gold trophy is only getting to 500,000 years, which is really strange. Like,
probably because they thought that there wasn't going to be
anybody would go to that trouble.
Yeah. So.
But there have been some people that have done it. So I don't know what it entails. They love this game that much that they wanted to do that. Congratulations to them. Glad that they could enjoy something and that's a lot of effort to put in. To a games.
So, I guess we should wrap it up here then.
Yeah, let's start to wrap it up here.
Is there
I don't personally,
Okay.
Yeah, I don't personally think this game is the worst I've ever played in my life or anything. There's just so many parts to it that didn't play out in a way that I could enjoy the experience fully. Mm-hmm. So that's really unfortunate, and I'm a little saddened by the fact that I didn't go to a lot of trouble to get the game for you, but I am disappointed that I did send it to you thinking, having only played that beginning portion, thinking, this seems kind of neat. And then, you went to this trouble to play it too, and it didn't really pan out for us. So I'm not going to necessarily apologize to you because I paid for it. You just paid for it with your time, but which is also very valuable. However, it is just unfortunate we couldn't really find something to enjoy with this experience as much as I would have liked to have.
Well, as you kind of put, I don't know, I'm not very accepting, it seems to be, when it comes to games.
No, I understand that, but look, I didn't exactly have the greatest time finishing this game as well, so it's not as though you're just nitpicking and being angry about it. We're just looking at it being a little more critical than perhaps.
Right. It's not critical for the sake of being critical. It is critical in the hopes that somebody listening would be like, oh, okay, I see where they're going with it, and I agree, or here's a different angle of it. That's what this whole thing's about, right?
Right. Interesting thing, a lot of people seem to have fairly high praise for this game, so perhaps they enjoy this type of gameplay. So.
Right. So, I would say just give it a shot, because as you said, you can probably get it for fairly cheap.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very expensive game.
So, that's it for me.
Alright, well, that's going to be our look at Freedom Wars for the Vita. So if you are interested in checking this game out, as Taylor said, probably not too expensive and probably fairly easy to track down. However, it seems our consensus wasn't all that positive. But we hope you enjoyed this episode regardless, and you will join us next time for whatever game or games we may be playing and talking about. So, from Taylor and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Woo!